Could you live in one of America's most racist states? This isn't just a list. It's a journey through history, culture, and current affairs that shape the racial dynamics in these states. We've spent countless hours researching, interviewing experts, and analyzing data to bring you a detailed view of these regions. Stay with us as we explore what makes these states notorious and ask yourself, would you live there? Number 10, Arizona. In this video, we're taking a few trips out west, and Arizona is one of them. If you weren't aware, most of this video will focus on the southern region. Despite having a significant Hispanic population, Arizona still struggles with race relations. The state has received criticism for its strict immigration laws, which many believe are deeply ingrained in the culture and government. It's worth noting that 71.4% of the bias-motivated crimes in Arizona are directed toward individuals based on their race, ethnicity, or ancestry. Number 9, South Carolina. South Carolina has a troubled past when it comes to race relations. The state has a history of slavery and segregation. Recent years have seen criticism of the state's voter suppression efforts. They have been trying to purge voter rolls and enact new voting laws, which many argue will disproportionately affect people of color. It's not just race or ancestry that motivates crimes in South Carolina. People are targeted for their religion and sexual orientation as well. In fact, 28% of bias-motivated crimes are against people of another religion, and about 11% are related to sexual orientation. Given this history, it's not surprising that South Carolina has earned a reputation as a challenging state when it comes to social justice. Number 8, North Carolina. North Carolina has a long history of discriminating against African Americans, particularly when it comes to voting rights. The state has been criticized for voter suppression efforts, which include strict voter ID laws and purging of voter rolls. While voting laws are necessary, it is important to make the process of obtaining a voter ID easy and accessible for everyone. Currently, the requirements to obtain a voter ID can be burdensome, especially for low-income individuals who may not have the means to travel long distances to government offices. It is worth noting that 79.6% of North Carolina's bias-motivated crimes are related to race and ancestry. 13.4% pertain to sexual orientation, and religion accounts for 6.5%. Despite having sizable cities, North Carolina is not generally known for being accepting of gender diversity. It is important to acknowledge these issues and work towards creating a more inclusive and equitable society. Number 7, Texas. Texas is a state with a diverse population, but it still faces significant issues when it comes to race relations. The state has faced criticism for its harsh immigration laws, which many believe are rooted in the local government and culture. However, in my personal experience, I have not encountered much racism in Texas. While there may be stories of racism in the state, I believe this issue exists everywhere and not just in Texas. Recently, Texas has attempted to pass new voting laws that some argue disproportionately affect people of color. When examining bias-motivated crimes in Texas, 70.1% are due to race, ethnicity, and ancestry. Additionally, 17% are based on sexual orientation, 7.5% on religion, and 1.9% on gender identity. These statistics come from the Department of Justice. Number 6, Arkansas. It's not a surprise that Arkansas is one of the states with a history of segregation and discrimination, particularly in education. The state's schools are underfunded and segregated, which has resulted in persistent racial achievement gaps. Arkansas has also been accused of attempting to suppress voter rights. According to the Department of Justice, bias-motivated crimes in the state are mostly race and ancestry related. Sexual orientation comes in second, with 21.1%. However, they do not have any gender identity-related crimes, which is probably because transgender individuals know to avoid Arkansas. This state's story is a critical chapter in our exploration. Number 5, Georgia. In my opinion, Georgia has made significant progress compared to other southern states since the 1950s. Sadly, Georgia has a long history of discrimination against African Americans that dates back to the days of slavery. The state has been accused of voter suppression, such as strict voter ID laws and purging of the voter rolls. This was brought up in the news during the 2020 election, which was marked by a lot of political controversy in Georgia. According to the Justice Department, Georgia has issues with bias-motivated crimes. The majority of these crimes, 67.3%, are motivated by race or ancestry. Religious discrimination accounts for 13.3%, sexual orientation for 12.2%, and discrimination against people with disabilities accounts for 3.7%. Gender identity is also a target, with 2% of the crimes motivated by it. Number 4, Tennessee. This one surprises me and doesn't surprise me at the same time. Tennessee is a southern state, so one might assume that there is a good amount of racism present. However, reflecting on the people I know from Tennessee, I don't see much of this in them. Although my opinion is based on a small sample size of 10-15 people, I believe that Tennessee has a history of racial discrimination, especially when it comes to education. The state has faced criticism for underfunded and segregated schools, leading to fewer minorities going to college, less college attainment, and a smaller educated workforce, which results in poverty. Additionally, Tennessee has a history of voter suppression and disenfranchisement of people of color. Bias-motivated crimes in Tennessee are mostly race or ancestry-related, accounting for 70% of them, with 20% being related to sexual orientation, 5% to religion, and 2.5% to gender identity. Number 3. Louisiana. Louisiana has a complicated history when it comes to race relations. Although the state has a sizable African American population, they still encounter significant discrimination in areas like housing and employment. Louisiana's criminal justice system is also notoriously harsh, particularly towards people of color. It's not surprising that Louisiana ranks high in terms of bias-motivated crimes, with 67.5% of incidents rooted in race and ancestry, 15% in sexual orientation, 12.5% in religion, and 2.5% in disabilities. Gender identity accounts for less than 1% of such crimes. However, some cities in Louisiana, such as New Orleans, have a reputation for being more tolerant than other parts of the South. Number 2. Alabama. The state that ranks at number 2 is often referred to as the Yellow Jacket State, but in reality, it's actually the Yellow Hammer State. It's interesting to note that this is another southern state. Alabama's history is marred by racial tensions, particularly during the Civil Rights era. The state has had a reputation for discriminatory policies and practices, such as segregation laws that remained in place until the 1960s. More recently, Alabama has come under fire for its controversial immigration laws, which many believe are rooted in racism. Alabama is often seen as a stereotypical Deep South state. When it comes to hate crimes, 78.6% are motivated by race or ancestry, 17.9% by religion, and only 3% by sexual orientation. The state doesn't appear to be concerned with gender identity, disabilities, or gender. Instead, they focus on one's origin and religion. Alright, before we get to number 1, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to stay until the end for the 2 video suggestions we have for you guys. Number 1. Hawaii. Just kidding, guys. Number 1 is Mississippi, also known as the Magnolia State, which has a notorious history of racism. This includes the era of slavery and Jim Crow laws. Despite having the highest percentage of African Americans in any state, Mississippi still struggles with discrimination in areas such as education, housing, and employment. The state has also experienced racially motivated violence, including the murder of civil rights activists in the 1960s. While these events occurred many years ago, their impact is still felt in the United States and Mississippi. In terms of bias-motivated crimes, 87.5% of Mississippi's crimes are race-related, 12.5% are related to religion, and everything else is under 1%. It seems that race and religion are the only things that matter in Mississippi. As we conclude our journey through America's most racist states, we encourage you to reflect on these insights. Could you see yourself living in any of these states? What changes would need to occur to make them more welcoming? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you found value in our exploration today, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating destinations.